Hello and welcome everyone to this very important update on Tesla. Now, today on Monday, one day before earnings. And a lot of people are now anticipating the earnings call tomorrow. There's a lot of buzz. What is going to happen? It was a very bad quarter, as everyone knows, but is it all priced in? And what's going to happen next? I do not want to focus just on the earnings call, but give you my perspective on the next 15 months and then come back to the earnings call and to the question, what do we actually think about Tesla, that stock at the center, at the eye of the storm of the AGI revolution and embodied AI? What is the best play? What should we do? So, of course, not investment advice. This is just me sharing what I intend to do here and why. And I want to give you some insight. So let's start this. So as I mentioned before, we are living through the age of AGI. That is what most people have not yet recognized. I had a video out explaining why I believe AGI has already started, artificial general intelligence, the most important invention in the history of humanity. And I'm not exaggerating. Even if you're a fan of fire, a fan of the wheel, this is more important because it is going to replace the central human skill, which is intelligence in value creation. So not completely replace, hopefully, but we will get to this in another video. So this is all happening. It has started beginning of 2025 with the AI systems using their own capability to improve their own code. Of course, not in a full feedback loop, but you know that Anthropic, OpenAI, X, Gemini, they're using their capabilities to write their own code, and they're doing so with increasing efficiency, leading to that point where the AI will take over and improve itself. And that technically has already happened. Hey, creating these videos is a lot of work. Please like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. Now let's get back to the video. So that will lead in the first phase to an enormous economic transformation. That is what my channel is focused on. That's what we are focusing on in pioneerlands.net. Go there. And this will change everything, starting with the economy. It will lead to enormous extinction level problems down the road. But first, we have to survive the first onslaught here, which is an economic onslaught. And that onslaught will start to happen on a broader scale, end of this year, and then go into hyperdrive in 2026, starting to eliminate more and more jobs until it eliminates all jobs in 2030, roughly. So, of course, there will people be profiting from that, like Tesla, like the Max 7, like any AGI company, because it will generate enormous amounts of abundance and wealth, but also create a lot of problems. I always start with this to have a context of what's actually happening here and why this bullishness in Tesla is the right move, in my opinion. So let's go to some criticism of Elon and the Robo taxi announcement this year. As you probably know, a lot of eyes tomorrow in the earnings call will be on the Robo taxi Austin launch. And a lot of analysts and a lot of critics, I see it on X when I get all the comments in. I was on Herbert on Sunday, and we had all these comments, good and bad ones, but the critical ones are always saying, you guys are delusional. Tesla is never going to launch Robotaxi. It's never going to happen. And one argument is that Elon has a history of FSD failure and saying for 10 years, self-driving is around the corner, is coming next year or end of this year. He's said this again and again and always was wrong. Why do I believe, and I do believe it, that he's right this time? Maybe not in June, but this year. Let me give you an example. I want to talk about a metaphor, or an example from that we can derive the first principle here. When an analyst sees Elon saying something and Elon is wrong about it, the analyst thinks in old school mode. Let's say you have a general, and that general has the mission to take a beach of the enemy, right? There are landing crafts, and he attacks the beach, and all his people get slaughtered, and he fails, right? That's pretty bad. So the analysts say, or his super general, whatever the military rank is above the general, says, you are stupid, you have one more chance. So next year, general comes again, attacks the beach again and loses, but this time he only loses half his people, right? Doesn't matter, he probably doesn't get a third chance. So if Elon says every year FSD is coming, why wouldn't it be the same as this general? He's trying to take the beach, but he's failing every time. Let me tell you why. Because when it comes to companies like Tesla, where we know they have smart teams, we know they have a lot of technology progress, then attempting to have full self-driving and robotaxi ready and failing does not mean you're just failing. It means next year you're going to come back and try to take that beach, but every time you try again, you have twice the amounts of troops. So let's say you have a general. He has 5,000 troops. They're trying to storm the beach. They fail. He does it again. But this time he has 10,000 troops. Maybe he fails again. But the next time he has 20,000 troops, and then 40,000, and then 80,000, and then 160,000, and then 320,000 soldiers storming the beach. What are the odds that when he tries again with 640,000 soldiers that he's going to fail again? That is how you have to think about technology attempts to get something done. That is how you have to think about companies like Tesla that are very big and can afford that to double down and double down and double down. The more someone fails with a machine like that behind them, the exponentially less likely it becomes that he will fail again next year. With every attempt, the probability of failure goes down dramatically if you're sitting on a technology machine. That is counterintuitive, because for most analysts, they think, well, if you fail 3 times, the probability you fail a 4th time is very high. That is the exactly wrong thinking. And we are on this exponential trajectory. We actually get signals from the progress FSD makes, and these signals are now clear that we are on track of nailing this. This will be important further down in the video, because I will explain that now we will have multiple attempts, shots on target, starting in June. But especially if it fails or something goes wrong, the odds that it then goes right just increase exponentially every time. The only risk to Tesla stock, in my opinion, at that moment in time, where we have these 2 big things I'm going to go into as catalysts. One is Robotaxi, the other is Optimus. One is a $7 trillion TAM, and the other is an unlimited TAM starting with $25 trillion. The replacement of all physical human labor and the multiplication of the total labor market in the world. That is Optimus. But starting with Robotaxi, a $7 trillion transportation market. The only risk to Tesla stock, based on that beach example I just gave, is here. I listed it. The only risk how Tesla stock and Tesla is going to fail on this is that one of these 4 things is going to happen. Tesla are a bunch of dummies. Is that the case? No, you can check on it. Tesla, the people who work in Tesla on these problems, on Optimus and FSD, are not dummies. They're actually very smart. They have great track records. So these are not dummies, and they have track records of being some of the best people in that space. The second problem is maybe they don't have money. You can only double your capacity if you pour in a lot of money. That is not the case. Tesla is the best funded R&D operation in autonomous driving and in robots. That's what analysts also often forget. Tesla spends roughly $5 billion a year in R&D. There is no other company in autonomous driving or robots that spends $5 billion a year in R&D and has done so over multiple years. The third problem is they don't focus enough. They're distracted with all kinds of other stuff. But the opposite is actually true. Under a lot of criticism, Elon said, forget about all these cars. Let's don't even do the affordable model and do just stripped down versions and mini versions. Let's focus all our energies on Robotaxi and on Optimus. He got a lot of slack. He caught a lot of slack on that. But that means the entire team, you have to imagine this, simulate it in your brain. You're in Tesla. What manager in Tesla, what team member in Tesla is not aware that they better nail Robotaxi? Who at Tesla is not aware that they better stay ahead with Optimus? No one is not aware of that. That is very important on an organizational level. And finally, maybe they don't have pressure. Maybe they're just hanging out. I don't think so, because Wall Street, the pressure on the stock to nail this in June is enormous. The competition on Optimus is increasing. I don't think anyone at Tesla hangs out and says, whatever, maybe now, maybe next year. So if these 4 things are given, right, and not happening as negative factors, I do not see any way how Tesla is not nailing these two big things. Hey, if you want to stay ahead of capital markets and the next Tesla moves, join us in Pioneerlands. Here we track Tesla, capital opportunities, AGI disruption, and politics. It's your critical information advantage in the age of AGI. It's free and the link is in the description. Let's get back to the video. And very important, of course, Elon is distracted. Elon does Doge, Elon does X, Elon does SpaceX, whatever. But Tesla is not a beginner team. They are the most formidable AGI company in the world. They have these two main objectives. They have incredible teams. And the mission is very simple in a way. It's not hard to understand. It's technologically very challenging, but the goal is very clear. Make these stupid taxis drive themselves and make that Optimus robot do all these things with his hands. It's not complicated what the objective is. And if you then put all that money, all that pressure, and all these teams behind it, what are the odds they can't nail it, especially given the AGI wave that is building up all around us? So that's why I'm extremely bullish strategically on this whole thing. But let's think more, because we have these earnings call tomorrow. We have to do our trades and understand where we put our money and what instruments we put the money. The timing, of course, is very important. And how do I think about that? Basically, I see we have the first shot on target on Robotaxi, June 25th. That is very important. I think the odds that Tesla nails everything out of the gate and just scales are not very high. We'll get to the percentage soon. But I think once you are in the market, you launch this thing, the clock is ticking, the pressure is on, we will see rapid progress. So I'll get into that in a minute, what that means. Optimus. So once you're out of the gate invisible, the race is on. It's going to happen in short order from there. Optimus, the first shot, is probably around Q4 25, Q4 this year, where they will come out with videos showing Gen 3 Optimus doing stuff at Tesla. You can be guaranteed that there will be some form of big event and big display of capabilities this year, probably end of this year. And then going into aggressive commercialization second half of 2026, because they have to actually in Optimus' case. So we have to then also take into consideration, I will get into the exact timing soon, but here we know Robotaxi will be live June this year, and Optimus will be kind of half live end of this year. On the macro level of the market has to play along. Here's why I think the market is not the biggest risk, right? The market can only derail Tesla if there is a crash, if there's panic, because when there's panic, everything is possible. It doesn't matter what Tesla does. But if we have a bear market or a neutral sideways market or a bull market, none of these will interfere with Tesla too much. Here's why. A bear market, meaning we trickle down a little bit, 0.5% down every month. It's annoying for 12 months or something, which totally could happen. Or it's neutral, just doesn't go anywhere. We live through the age of AGI. There will be decoupling of key stocks. If a stock unlocks enormous revenue streams, it doesn't matter if the market goes sideways. It doesn't even matter if you're in a bear market, because these are revenue streams. These are not fantasies. So once they happen, I think we will see more and more decoupling in general, because I'm actually not that bullish. I'm with, I think Warren Buffett said it, like some of these guys, Ray Dalio. I am on the more skeptical side long-term for the markets, because there are so many problems in the economy. But that does not mean the Mag 7 and the AGI stocks can't go through the roof. So I think we are entering a whole new phase also in the stock market that is not very historically, because AGI will disrupt everything and destroy a lot of people, destroy a lot of countries, destroy a lot of companies, but also turbocharge some of these companies and some of these people and some of these countries to tremendous heights. So we are entering a whole new thing. That's why you have to watch the channel and other channels. There's lots of smart people commenting on this. So I see a decoupling happening. Only in a crash scenario will the market actually bring down Tesla, but a crash by definition doesn't last very long, right? A crash is a one-off thing. It can always happen, definitely now. So we have to be cautious short-term, but it's not going to derail anything long-term here. So let's talk about Robotaxi a little bit more in detail, because it's one half of the important thing here. And it's the one that is actually happening now. So on Robotaxi, I talked about it a little bit, but what we need to see in order to really boost the stock is we need a commercial launch. I think that is happening in June, very likely. We need to have line of sight to less than $1 per mile costs. I don't know. I think it's going to happen. Speculation if they want to push it there quickly, but everyone who does the math on CyberCap knows it's going to happen. Low COGS, that means 50% plus margin, even under $1 a mile would be nice. Line of sight doesn't have to happen out of the gate. Very likely to happen. CyberCap mass production, I think we have some problems here with China. If China doesn't get resolved and turns into some form of cold trade war, that can lead to delays and maybe from Q4 2025 pushed into Q2 2026 or something. Not a strategic problem, but it would be annoying and put some risk on the timing. We need 5 or more large metropolitan areas line of sight, but we have Austin, we have then Dallas and Houston coming quickly because it's Texas. We have probably Phoenix, we have probably Florida. So I think these 5 can be nailed quickly. California, who knows, that will be difficult. Of course, we have to avoid technical hiccups. That goes into technology questions. I think there will be remote operators controlling these cars. If Waymo can pull it off, Tesla can pull it off. And low wait times, which is just a critical mass. This is like trivial low wait times. So when I look at this, I don't know if they can nail this in June, all of them. Probably not. But will they nail all of them by end of the year? I think it's 90% guaranteed. The June timeline, is that realistic? As I said, I think we have a 30% chance of nailing all of them in June, July, August by the July earnings call, and a 70% chance that we don't. But we have a 90% or greater chance to nail all of them by, I think, Q1, but latest Q2 2026, which is my important number here, 90%. So what about Optimus? That's the second big shot on goal we have. And Optimus Gen 3 is coming up probably this year with very high likelihood. I find it actually encouraging that we hear nothing about Optimus. Because what does it mean that we hear nothing? Well, there could be 2 reasons. The first reason is nothing is happening. They're just failing, don't want to tell us anything. I think that's not very likely, given the R&D spend and given the enormous pressure and given that Elon and everyone knows how big this is. The other possibility is that we actually see a lot of progress and things get real. When things get real and at the same time the competition is heating up. On the FSD side and Robotaxi, there is no competition. Waymo is dead in the water, was always dead and will never be alive. The Chinese can't do these things for many reasons. And if they could, they cannot roll it out in the West. So Robotaxi has no competition. Optimus is very different. There's enormous money flowing into all kinds of startups. And we see enormous progress. And many of these robots are probably more advanced on certain hardware specifications than Tesla. So here we have a tight race. Tesla still has insurmountable moats, in my opinion, but there's a lot of stuff brewing around them, which means you don't want to disclose something all the time. You want to keep it under wraps, be focused, get it done, and then come out of the gate with a surprise and kill the market. That is very likely to happen. So I'm actually encouraged by the lack of commenting on this. What are the conditions to really drive the stock up on the robot side? I think we need line of sight to a commercial launch. We need to see proof of, viability and value. I think the Legion, right? The Legion, that's how Elon calls it, will be very, very important because similar to Robotaxi, there's something called Robo porn. And there's this porn joke. How do you know something is an erotic movie versus a porn movie? And you can't really describe it, right? Because it's very hard to academically nail this down. But there's a saying, you know it when you see it. You see porn, you say like, this is not an erotic movie, this is porn. The same is true for the robots. When do we know the revolution is here? When do we know? How do we know? What exactly, what's the freedom of movement of the hands? And, what's the exact price point for the robot? It doesn't matter. This is like porn. Once you see it, you know it. Once you see 5,000 Optimus working in a factory alone, not remote controlled, you will just know it. And that's very important because humans are still emotional and intuitive. And once analysts and retail investors see this, they say, oh my God, it's game over. I need to buy the stock. So the question is, when do we see the Legion in action? When do we see stuff that blows our minds? I think that could definitely happen this year. It will 90% plus happen by next year, by mid of next year. And so that overlaps with the robotaxi 90%. And so I think we clearly have an over 90% chance that some amazing robot revolution will happen in a way that makes it inevitable for people to recognize that Tesla is now in a new age. All of that is not easy to fully simulate right now, where we are full of FUD and fear and markets and stuff like that. But when you have a clear-headed analysis of that, this is probably going to happen. You can ask the reverse question, what are the odds we are sitting here in 15 months in June 2026? There's no robotaxi. It doesn't drive itself. There's no commercial utilization of this. There are no cyber cabs roaming around in multiple cities. There's no Optimus demo that showed that Optimus is already productive. What are the odds that in 15 months, both of that didn't happen yet? I would say less than 10%. That is the debate we have to have. If you're pushing back on me, that's exactly what we have to debate, because everything else doesn't matter. So what does that all mean? And what are more signals before we go into the translation into trading? The signals, I see that Elon was focused on Doge. Everyone criticized him for that. But what we also saw is that the Tesla, Robotaxi, and Optimus teams are laser focused. There are many signals for that. There is just no doubt that the Tesla teams were not distracted by Doge. Maybe Elon didn't pay enough attention, but you don't need Elon to constantly watch you and look over your shoulder in instances like Robotaxi and Optimus, where everything is fully understood what needs to be done. You don't need some Elon input. Honestly, I think Elon doesn't even know that much, to be totally frank, about AI and these things. Elon's skill set is to set the targets, to understand the quantification of it, to organize the funds and hire the right people, similar to rockets. He's then coming in and tweaking some things and making sure the big picture is aligned. But the actual grunt work in the middle of it, these are the math and coding and AI guys doing this. They know their mission. They tell Elon what they need in terms of compute, and that's it. So that does not require Elon to be constantly there and doing some stuff. The stakes are insanely high, which is a good thing. The compute is expanding fast. Tesla Cortex, their supercomputer, went online end of October 2024 with 50,000 H100s and 20,000 D1s. So the Tesla internal chip, which is the equivalent of roughly 10,000 H100s or 8,000 or something. So about 60,000 H100s. Why is this important? Because this is like a doubling from what they had before. And this is directly correlated with the ability of FSD. And if that thing went live and in November last year, it means there are multiple iterations necessary to really make it work and get the full force on the street, no pun intended, which means we are still benefiting from that, and we still have not fully extracted all the potential out of that, which is important because that means version 14 is probably already here. So version 13 is lagging these capabilities, and this is very recent. So I'm bullish that this is not exhausted yet, and they probably have also the goal to get this to 100,000 or something end of the year. Elon said 300,000, but divided by 3. So if we put it all together, now let's take a deep breath. Now we know the situation. My main message is by June, we have a 30% chance that this works. By December, January, we already have a 90% chance that Robotaxi works to the extent necessary to drive the stock. And by June next year, we have also a 90% chance that Optimus delivers some real disruptive news. And so this gets overlapped. So I predict that in the next 15 months, we see that important inflection point all of us have waited for now nearly five with the stock going sideways, because we all know it's a transition into an AI company. And if once that happens, we are on track, on the path to 11,000 stock price. So that's how I see it. My 2030 prediction of 11,000 hinges on these two things coming together. I'm not the only one understanding this. So it's all about, can they reach that inflection point, and will they reach it now or in 10 years? And I'm saying they will reach it in the next 15 months. And if that happens, we see a major impact. So here are my probabilities. This is a combined, like here I said 90% that robotaxi is live December. Here I say 50%. I'm a little conservative. Now, I'm more sure about this number and this number. This year, debatable. Doesn't matter. And what does it mean for the stock price? Well, I have actually some fair value of the stock price here in my fair value DCF model, where I'm saying in June 25, the fair future value of Tesla on a discounted cash flow level is actually 620, so way higher than it is now. And next year, June 2026, it's at 1,113. So this is the true intrinsic value of Tesla. Will the stock go there or not? That's a whole different question. What I'm saying is, this is not gut feeling, this is DCF, real valuation. Assuming these things happen in a certain timeline, that's a different story. You can go to pioneerlands.net, to the Pioneer Academy, look at the model and make up your own mind. But on a psychological level and on Wall Street, I think full awareness, you see it with Adam Jonas of Morgan Stanley, it's basically an $800 stock price if all these things happen. So I think once this all happens, people like Dan Ives, Adam Jonas, they will have price targets around 800. And I think the stock goes there. And then plus a little hype and run up, it goes to 1,000. So I think whenever all these things happen, I said, we have a good shot at hitting 1,000 and a very, very good shot hitting 800. And so robots are live and the robotaxi and recognized. So what do we do now? What's the strategy? If you know that could start to really happen in June, but probably not, but it will more or less for sure happen by June next year, what do we do? Of course, you can just buy stocks and be happy. But if you're more greedy, what can you do? What I'm going to do, I tell you what I'm going to do. I have already some long leaps, end of 2026 and 2027. I got pretty much slaughtered on a bunch of them. For now, of course, I didn't sell. I sold some of them, actually, when Tesla was back at 280 or something. So that was smart, tactical sell. I keep my core stock position, of course. Before earnings, before tomorrow, I'm going to doubling down a little bit now that I have a tighter timeline. The tighter the timeline, the better it is. So with September 2026, 400 long leaps that are right now at 36. I think today they will be discounted. I think, $3 more or something. Let's see, maybe more. So that's very good because you can do the math. Based on my convictions, the probability that Tesla is above 436 by September 2026 is like enormous. It's enormous. So that seems a pretty safe bet. And if it goes to 800, you can do the math, right? You're making 10x your money, a little bit more than 10x. That would be very nice. If it goes to 800 before that date, you even make more than 10x. The art of the deal will not be to make a lot of money here, but to sell it at the right point in time. That is a discussion when all of that happens. But I think that's a good one. 500 is fine, 350, whatever. This is like your personal risk appetite. In a scenario one, we see a drop after earnings, which is not unlikely, right? I'm pretty neutral on earnings. And we have technical confirmation. That is a very good scenario, right? You basically want the stock to be killed as much as possibly before while hitting all the milestones. So if Elon comes out and says, yes, we are live, everything is great, Optimus is coming, but we are postponing the affordable models or some other stuff, or we have bad margins, and Wall Street decides to sell Tesla tomorrow or Wednesday, that's the best case scenario. You basically want hard confirmation on this crazy trajectory while Wall Street sells the stock, because then you can buy even more. If that happens, I double down. And you can even go shorter term, because if you have more confirmation, the risk goes down. Not too short term, but scenario two, drop after earnings with delays, where Elon, maybe it drops and Elon says, we have to push robotaxi or something. Then we have to assess, and depending how bad it is, maybe stay put, keep it, or sell, right? I'm looking through all the noise that Wall Street looks at. It's all noise. I'm looking at, are we on track for these transformative things? Do we get believable confirmation on robotaxi and believable confirmation on related things like CyberCab production? And do we get believable confirmation on Optimus? That's the key here. Scenario three, we get a run up after earnings with confirmation, then we have to see what we do. It depends on how bullish the whole thing is. I am definitely a trigger puller if I have leaps and the stock goes on a run up and exceeds certain expectations of mine. I'm out, because that just means it's going to drop before it goes up again. So if you see a too crazy hype run up, if Trump tariffs recede and everyone goes crazy for some reason and Tesla stock goes to 500 and robotaxi is actually not that great, in my opinion, right? When it comes out and then it goes to 600, I would be very cautious. It's like, okay, sell all the leaps. I'm pretty sure in Q4 we see another drop and I get this stuff way cheaper again. So, options are tricky. Don't always hold them, or mostly don't hold them. And scenario 3, we have delays in my core AGI trajectory, but the stock runs up because they're announcing some stupid things like, oh, there's an affordable EV or some other sideshow. I would also sell in that scenario, but that's why we have to keep watching and figure out what happens. So you get the point. Okay, let's wrap this up. Here's the bottom line. I think the odds of a historic run-up of Tesla, potentially to 1,000, but to something very significant in the next 15 months by mid of 2026 are very high. I would say very high. And I'm not talking about a run up to 488 to old highs. I'm talking about a real run up to 1,000 or 800 because of these things. So this is very nice, but you have to be cautious. The more the stock goes sideways or down, while we get confirmation on these central things, the better it is. Because if it's going to end up here, if it goes like this, well, there's not much alpha. But if it goes down or sideways, while we get the confirmation to that point, that's how you make the most money. But you need to have a clear vision. The current sentiment in the market is extreme fear. We are still at extreme fear. We are extreme FUD on Tesla, also on Trump, which is always good because it creates alpha for the ones who look through it. Robo porn is a real thing. You will, this people and especially the analysts underestimate how powerful all these things visually are, even to themselves and their clients. Once this happens, it's going to be surreal. AGI is here. This is the big underlying wave that we are sitting on. Again, completely misunderstood by analysts. Not by Silicon Valley leaders, by the way. I just heard an Eric Schmidt interview and all. Like, people understand in the business. They understand that end of this year, it's absolutely game over. This is a whole series of videos I have. Follow me and subscribe. Don't forget that I will keep you updated on AGI. There is an insane tsunami coming now. People don't get it, what's going to happen. It's going to be insane. Way beyond Tesla. Optimus competition is also accelerating in conjunction with AGI, but even independent as a robot thing. So that puts enormous pressure on the team, and Elon is not a dummy. He sees all these things coming up. So this is good. It puts pressure on Tesla. Elon is also starting to refocus more on Tesla because it's getting exciting again. He's a little out of Doge. There was another video with Hannity where he interviewed the Doge team. The Doge team is like mind-bogglingly genius. Not just Elon, but the leadership behind him is like insane. These are the best minds in America, which is good, which means Elon is less needed. The tariff scare is likely resolved soon, in my opinion. Again, you have to discount for the fear factor. It's not that the tariffs are not dangerous, but think about it. There is a highly capable team in the White House. All these guys around Trump. And Trump himself, he doesn't want to lose. I think the fear is not on the appropriate level of what it actually is. I think there's less risk here. But I'm a little less sure on this. There is definitely macro tail risks still in place. And if you go into any kind of option strategy like I do, options are dangerous. If anything goes wrong, you're losing tremendous amounts of money. And anything I'm saying here is a prediction of the future, which is a risky business. So we need to watch everything. Tesla can go down to 150 if things go wrong in between. And then it's very important to really think what you do. So that's the situation. Now you know what I'm doing. I'm buying some leaps before the earnings call. Depending what exactly happens, then I'm buying probably more. But you have to be cautious and you have to watch out. I hope that was helpful. See you very soon.